You are listening to the Why Smart Women podcast, the podcast that helps smart women work out why we repeatedly make the wrong decisions and how to make better ones. From relationships, career choices, finances, to faux fur jackets and kale smoothies. Every moment of every day, we're making decisions. Let's make them good ones. I'm your host, Annie McCubbin, and as a woman of a certain age, I've made my own share of really bad decisions. Not my husband, I don't mean him, though I did go through some shockers to find him. And I wish this podcast had been around to save me from myself. This podcast will give you insights into the working of your own brain, which will blow your mind. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm recording, and you are listening on this day. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. Well, hello, smart women, and welcome back to the Why Smart Women podcast. Today, I am broadcasting from DY, the Northern Beaches, Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. And it's a little bit of a difficult day here for David and I because our Groodle rider, the Golden Groodle, has swallowed something he shouldn't. We think possibly a sock. Do we think a sock?
Yeah, maybe a sock. It's kind of so domestic and unimpressive that it should have done so much damage to him.
Such habit. He's always had a propensity for swallowing socks, underwear and gloves. But we think it's a sock because we live in this apartment block and there's a garden, a communal garden just beyond our courtyard. And my neighbour said to me, there was a sock here, it was a black sock, it had Adidas on it, and now it's missing, so maybe that's what he's eaten. And my husband or David said, yeah, well, he'd seen him playing with it anyway. So yesterday he became ill, and we sort of kept an eye on him all day, and he wouldn't eat, which is very unusual, isn't it, David?
It's very unusual that he wouldn't eat.
And he was very lethargic.
Oh, look, I mean, it was obvious. It was acutely obvious that something was wrong earlier in the day when I noticed that he was trying to vomit something up. Yeah. And it wasn't just that kind of involuntary, something's coming. It's almost like
don't go into too much detail. Don't, because it's awful for our listeners.
Okay.
Don't.
All right. Well,
it was awful.
All I can say was, he got into a position where his body would convulse, and he would.
David, too much vomiting detail.
Okay, sorry.
The ladies can't cope with it. I can barely cope with it. Anyway.
I'm sorry, ladies.
I don't know if we say ladies anymore. It could not be. Maybe it's not right.
The women. Sorry, women.
Women. Anyway,
the women can't.
Anyway, as you know, he's having some surgery at the moment.
As you can hear, we are emotionally on edge.
Yeah, we are.
We
it's
are.
actually been really awful. So
it has been awful.
Awful. So. What we thought we'd talk about, as we're right smack in the middle of it, is how to practice critical thinking when you're under pressure. Because when you're under pressure and you're very emotional, that's when your thinking gets hijacked.
That's right. And in the course of this conversation, I think we're going to identify some of the very specific moments when Annie and I felt our own thinking being hijacked by emotion and conspiracy theories and possibly sending us in directions that weren't helpful.
So we get to about 8 o'clock last night and the dog is looking very unwell.
Very lethargic.
And it's just, I think that there is some plot by animals and actually small children as well.
That they save it till Sunday night.
They save everything until the weekend and also public holidays when everything's shut. I remember that from when our children were small. They would always wait until Saturday night, Sunday, to have some dreadful thing happen. Remember Lachlan had some eye thing and we had to try and find an eye hospital, and it was Sunday. And it was New Year's Day, and the eye hospital we went to was full of people who'd been glassed in the cross. Anyway, so there's always this issue. Anyway, so Sunday night here in Sydney.
So it was Sunday night.
Sunday night here in Sydney. The dog is deteriorating, so we stick the dog in the car.
Oh, no, hang on a second. Can I just talk about that early moment? Because I've been saying throughout the day, I noticed him trying to
don't go back to the vomiting description.
Make himself feel okay earlier in the day, it may come as no surprise that Annie was worried before I was. I kept saying,
You said things like, look, let's let his own body try and deal with it,
Yeah.
as opposed to a vet.
which is what he's always done.
Yeah, but he doesn't normally do that many times anyway. He progressively got worse. David was sort of more sanguine. I'm never sanguine to do with anything with health.
Yeah, look, and I remember saying to you, we were talking throughout the day, should we take him to the vet? And I was saying, look, if we take him to the vet, then he's going to be, prodded and poked and have things pushed in his mouth and other places, and it's going to be really uncomfortable for him. Why don't we just kind of let this thing work its way through his system? However, yes, he was lethargic, and we were sitting out on the grass, and I was just kind of, giving him a nice, relaxing pat. And I just noticed that he was completely immobile. Now, either he was really relaxed or very, very tired, or there was something else wrong, and I tried to get him up. It actually took me a couple of seconds before he was going to stir again, and I thought, no, this is serious. We do have to do something about it.
So we get in the car and we go to a local emergency vet hospital.
Yes.
So, right. All right. So,
and as we were driving there, would you say that that you were worried that something catastrophic was going to happen, or was it just a purely let's go get the dog diagnosed?
no, I always think something catastrophic is going to happen.
Okay.
I live in a world where something catastrophic is going to happen. Yeah. The worst case scenario is automatically where my reflexive thinking goes, and then I have to come back from that.
Yeah, because when you're there, it's like, how does that influence your powers of critical thinking?
That particular emotional state.
Yes.
Oh, well, of course, I just want something to fix it super quick.
Yes.
Just whatever it takes, just fix it, right? That's yeah.
So I guess our premise, and that is that sometimes when we are in a highly emotional state, that is when we are not sort of naturally inclined to employ critical thinking. We're probably more inclined to
Go with our emotions.
Go with our emotions. Magical thinking. If I pray, maybe he'll be all right. If we spend enough money on it, then he'll come back the way we want him to come back. It's that kind of slippery slope when we're highly emotional.
That is correct. So, if I may go back, so we get to this vet hospital. It's very nice. It's very clean, pretty. There's tea making, coffee making facilities. Everyone's super friendly.
Did you notice that it was staffed by attractive young women?
No, but you did.
I did.
No.
Well, I mean, and this goes to what I think is a very clever.
Just friendly. Everyone was very friendly and warm.
Friendly, warm, and caring.
Super warm.
Warm to us, warm to the dog.
Yeah, everyone was super warm and caring. So, so we get in there and then we sit for a minute and then we go in. A nurse comes out and she does his vitals. And then we go into a room with a vet, and she looks at him, and we establish that he has had a historical propensity to eat things that he actually shouldn't be eating. Underwear, socks and gloves and anything else he can get his paws on. So then she says we would need to do an X-ray to see what is going on with him.
Ka-ching.
Right? Ka-ching. So then she starts to talk very quickly about the set of diagnostics that they could do. And they could do an X-ray, and the X-ray could tell us whether or not he'd swallowed a foreign object. And then she said also we'd do blood tests to check for any other issues. And I said, well, hang on. If we discover that it is an issue that he has swallowed a foreign object, then obviously it's not another issue. So why would you do those blood tests? At that point, you would do them later if the foreign object business has been discounted.
And can I just point out, that was a moment when you actually did apply critical thinking, because in that moment, the whole environment, I think, is geared to getting you to say yes
to anything,
to absolutely anything.
And that is, I think that's to do with the authority bias. So you're in a position, and I think this happens in other contexts as well, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You walk into an area where you're dealing with professionals of a certain kind.
Like mechanics,
like bankers, like builders.
Builders.
You know,
builders.
the building renovator who comes over and has a look at your eaves and says, "Oh, gee, I don't like the way that was done first time." That's going to be expensive to fix.
Yeah, builders is a really, really good one. And the thing is, we have a propensity to listen to people that are authoritative. It's called the authority bias. So somebody that sounds very certain and is that has an authoritative manner is likely to sway our thinking. And she was very lovely, very pleasant, but she was very certain and she had an authoritative manner. And I mean, of course, she understands the insides of dogs, and we do not understand the inside of dogs, right? So, and the other thing is that she mentioned the price of this really, really early, didn't she? Like, yeah, which leads you to which bias, David?
The price of it? Well, I mean, by mentioning the price very, very early, what they're doing is they're actually setting
it's the anchoring bias.
That's right. Yeah, they're anchoring the idea that yes, we can save the dog, but it's probably going to cost between $6,000 and $10,000 based on what we currently know.
Yeah.
And so
and
again,
then you are anchored to that first amount, right?
Yeah. And once you agree to it, and that was the thing that was part of the hospital's business process. Very early on. Here's an estimate. Sign that. And because you're in an emotional state, you want to sign that really, really quickly. Authorize all of this stuff, and committing to a process, to tests, to monitoring, etc., which may not be absolutely necessary.
Yeah, and the other thing that is in play there, and it's the same thing as when a salesperson says, "Do you like this dress that you're trying on?" And you go, "Yes, I do." And then we feel really bad if you turn around and say, "No, I don't want it," because we are strongly driven by a cognitive bias called the consistency bias. So once I've said yes, we feel compelled to agree. So she's trying to get us to say yes. And the other part of it is that he is a beloved animal. He's a very important and loved member of our family, and there's some sort of emotional dynamic at play whereby you start thinking, well, all she wants to do is do some perfectly reasonable blood tests. What sort of dog parent are you that you wouldn't just agree? If you love the dog,
if you love the dog, you'd say yes to it.
Say yes, right?
Yeah.
So it's your cognitive thinking skills in these sort of situations are absolutely under attack.
And so in an environment where the friendly, warm, attractive people who have welcomed you lovingly, who have said nice things to your dog, who have reassured you that you're absolutely in the right place, then say, we want you to, sign up to between $6,000 and $10,000 worth of stuff, it is very difficult to resist. So what do you do in that moment? You slow it down. You just take a deep breath. And then if you want to just look into, say, why are these things included? You can ask a question. So why is it that we would do the blood test
before the X-ray
when the X-ray may actually suggest that the blood test is not necessary? And again, this isn't a Douglas Hanly Moyer blood test that goes on your Medicare card. This blood test is $500. And so I
but we'd been there about, I don't know, 40 minutes, and we were already up to $3,000.
That's right. And so that's the and that's the sunk cost, isn't it?
That's the sunk cost.
We've done that this much. We're on the train, and so we might as well keep going.
The sunk cost fallacy is absolute. Explain the sunk cost.
Well, the sunk cost is if you've spent time or money or emotional energy into something, and then you realise that actually it's not for you. It's more difficult to then
extricate yourself.
Exactly.
So it can happen in all sorts of contexts. The sunk cost fallacy can be at play. When you get on the phone and it's like, thank you for your call. We
you are the fifth caller in the queue.
Caller in the queue, and you think, well, I've been on the phone for 15 minutes. I may as well just hang on. I've already spent that time. And you find yourself an hour later, whereas actually it's a bit of a fallacy. It's a cognitive flaw. And the other place, of course, it shows up is, I've been in this relationship for 18 years. How can I walk out now? Because of the sunk cost of it. So sunk cost is a really big player in the quality of our thinking, because it's like, well, I've spent 5,000. What does it matter if I spend another 3, right?
And I've got to say that I was pretty malleable and
I don't think you were.
You don't think so?
No, not at all.
Really?
I thought you held your line really well.
Well, I was impressed and inspired by you when you did actually take a breath and you asked, why are we doing it in that way, and then requesting that they approach it in a way that actually made more sense to us, and they could see the sense in that. That was fair enough.
Although when we exited the vet room with the pretty vet and got out to the front desk with another pretty girl, and she handed me the invoice, which was, as I said, was going up by about $1,000
in the thousands.
Thousands.
I know that if you were to piece together some of my comments on the issue, right, I could certainly sound like one of those people who is just absolutely vigilant that no one is ever going to take them for a ride.
Oh, you're not like that at all.
But you know what? No, like I could indulge that part of myself that is suspicious. So
and I think that's an interesting point, because being ubiquitously suspicious is no more using your critical thinking skills as just being gullible.
Yeah, that's right.
It's all the same. Like you have to be looking at every issue and applying your critical thinking to every single issue, not just going on a sort of a road that sort of feels right.
Yeah.
Either they're trying to rip you off,
Yes.
right, or they're just the most beautiful people in the whole world.
Yes.
And why don't you buy everything?
Yeah, that's right. And you seem to think that I'm not a tremendously suspicious person, but it doesn't take long for me to think about a business model whereby you're looking after people's pets in an emergency situation. Yes, you can charge an astronomical margin on that, and it makes sense to have people at the front desk who are warm and friendly and who love dogs. And it's not easy. Sorry, it's not difficult for me to imagine how I could really think that they are taking us for a ride. And I think the dynamic is that when you are in an environment where you are clearly lacking in status, power and authority, like when you are with the builder, the mechanic, the police officer or the surgeons, the experience of not having power in that relationship can lead some people to think that automatically they're going to be taken advantage of.
Yeah, that's right. See, that's where you end up with a lot of this conspiratorial thinking that's going on at the moment. I'm sure it's in the States and Canada as well, but it's very, very prevalent in Australia. Of we will not accede to the demands of the government.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so mad and sort of anti-authoritarian, but really misplaced and terribly generic.
So the generic possibility is that when a human being finds themselves in a relationship, in a situation where they have no power, they can immediately go to, I'm going to be exploited here. And so I think that the reframe that was important for us last night was us to just simply reflect on the vet's perspective. I mean, they are liable for the animals that come into their care. They have professional ethics. They have standard procedures. Of course they have overheads. They are going to be more expensive. To get a specialist surgeon at 1:00 in the morning on a Sunday evening, it's of course that's going to be more expensive. So, I mean, what we really had to do was to recognise our own biases that might have been coming to the conclusion that the bill's being padded, and then actually shift to problem solving, to ask the question. So if we don't do that blood test, what are you worried about? Or, if we don't put him on a drip, what are the concerns? And that way, we move from casting ourselves to victims to actually being partners in the dog's care.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. So I think in these sort of highly emotional situations where you're sort of hyper aroused, and I could feel it in myself. You know, I had the full gamut of anxiety symptoms coursing through my body. You have to slow down the process. It's essential that you stop, go for a short walk, have a cup of tea, take a big breath, do something that actually intervenes in the downward spiral of your thinking.
Because in situations like this, and this was our experience, the professionals did regularly defer to us and say,
they did.
What is it that you want to do? You know, do you want him operated here at this hospital, or would you prefer that he went to your local vet, you know, the people that know him?
And I guess what you're talking about there is you know, we were handed some decisions, but only decisions that we were actually capable of making. I mean, clinical decisions we haven't got a clue about. But you need to be using metacognition, thinking about your thinking. And I think at one point when they called us this morning and the vet said to David, you can either have the surgery here. So this is this very SMIC, this very, very SMIC emergency vet. And he said, you can have the surgery here because we are all highly trained
Specialist surgeons,
or
argument from authority,
or you can have him operated on at your vet. Now, they're very good, but they are GPs and they're actually specialist trained surgeons. So there is so much in that one statement. There's argument from authority. Yes?
Yes.
Isn't there?
Yes, indeed.
There's a bit of a putting you emotionally over a barrel, like how much do you care about the dog?
Yes.
If you really cared about the dog, why wouldn't you go for the top surgeon? Why would you go for a suburban GP?
You would use
the specialist.
You would use the specialist. But in my mind, just my experience of the entire place, is that in the specialist hospital that exists to do surgeries on animals who have got themselves into trouble, my suspicion is that they'd probably be a bit more trigger happy, that they would be happy to use their expensive machines and highly experienced surgeons to do this job, when actually a less interventionist route might have been possible, and I thought that he'd probably get that at the GP, at the local vet
what
instead.
You said, which I thought was right, when he said that, which I thought was very loaded, very, very loaded, around how much do we care about the dog. What you said was, which of course is correct when you're put into these positions, is how long do we have to make this decision?
Yeah.
Because there's so much in that can be used to trigger you emotionally to make a poor decision, that what you need is time to rationally think through your thinking. So that's metacognition. Yeah, it's like metacognition, thinking about your thinking. You cannot make an accurate decision in those sort of situations unless you give yourself time to overcome your biases. This notion that I really like, which is treat your feelings as hypotheses, not conclusions.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to make emotions the enemy.
No, we don't. That's the other side of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some emotions are not, they're not the absolute pristine truth. It's an emotion, it's a feeling. But at the same time, we absolutely need feelings to guide us as well, right?
Exactly. I mean, right back at the start of the story, you were quite anxious about Ryder's demeanour, and I was not so anxious about Ryder's demeanour. Neither of our emotional states was the whole truth, but they were just kind of, as you say, they were informing what we thought was actually going on.
Yeah.
I had more evidence. Then I got emotional. I got worried about him. And then I thought, well, if Annie's worried about him and I'm worried about him, then that's it. Let's take him to the vet.
Yep.
The emotions that we had when we were in there. I mean, yes, we were relieved. We were relieved that we were in the safe place.
Just being in a clinical environment and that somebody was going to, help him, I immediately felt better.
Yes.
Immediately.
And then when they started throwing these astronomical numbers at me, I was feeling confused. I was feeling confused, and the hypothesis.
I felt sick.
You felt sick,
and then I got into bed, and then I just couldn't sleep because I kept thinking about what was the right thing to do, and then worrying that Ryder was on his own with and wouldn't know where he was.
Exactly, and so we shouldn't shame ourselves. You can't take people feeling emotional in these situations as some kind of failure or markdown. Those emotions actually do help us to make decisions because they are closely linked to what we value and what we want to preserve. But yes, the emotion is not the conclusion.
No.
The emotion is just the hypothesis.
And it is absolutely part of the frame. It's just not the whole frame, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. So I think if you just sort of have a bit of a, if we just go back over the whole thing, and we will let you know on Thursday how Ryder is because he's still in surgery, which is really awful. So look, when your heart is beating out of your chest, which mine was, that is your cue to slow your thinking. Yeah.
And when you don't agree to everything that is offered to you by the builder, the mechanic, or the surgeon, it's not that you're necessarily distrusting people. It's about tracking your own reasoning.
Exactly. Remaining present with your thinking in the dynamic, right? You're not handing it over completely.
Yes.
And I think that's really key. It's just occurred to me. You're not just handing it over, the whole premise. You're going, I'm involved in this to the degree to which I can be, to the degree of the knowledge that I have.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm doing a lot of thinking about collaboration at the moment. Collaboration as a skill and as a discipline that you can bring into all sorts of environments. And I do think that to go into the healthcare system or into any of these kind of projects where you're working with a professional and maybe an expensive professional, you get the balance right so that you are in a collaborative relationship with that person, that you step up. You don't necessarily wait for them to offer to collaborate with you, but you send signals early on that this is what collaboration means to me.
That's right.
This is
and to do that, I think we've all got, not all of us, but I know I've got approval seeking and so do you. I think you've sort of got to disengage from your approval seeking. Like, I'm going to say something and maybe I won't be approved of in this minute, right?
Yes.
Maybe it's not going to make them like me more and that's going to make you uncomfortable, but maybe that's what's necessary.
Yes.
So even with her last night, when I had to say, well, I don't think this bit's necessary.
Oh, the lady at the hospital.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there was a part of me that just wanted to go, oh my God, just whatever you think. Just the money's of no object, just save the dog, right? There was a part of me that wanted to be seen as a pet owner with extreme largesse.
Yes, like Shirley MacLaine in terms of endearment.
Running around hitting the thing.
So saying, save my dog.
Save my dog. Save my dog. So, I mean, I think that the summary that we can think about is, the emotional reasoning, confusing feeling with fact.
Okay.
Right? Name the emotion that you're having, which is very hard when you're under pressure, and then look for the evidence, ask for evidence.
Yeah, I'm frightened, I'm suspicious, I'm wary.
Yeah. And then, of course, this is very much in play, is the authority bias, so over-relying on experts. And what should you do instead, David?
Well, we do rely on experts, but we can ask,
and we must.
But we can ask them to share their reasoning.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, how do you reason your way through this diagnosis? To this kind of treatment.
Yeah.
Don't just reassure me that he's going to be all right if you do what you say. Tell me why you are holding that particular view.
Anchoring bias. The first number shapes all our judgments. That first number really lodges itself in our brain. So you have to put that aside and do what, David?
Well, I mean, you can respectfully ask the question, what does that cover? Why is it such a large total? Is this the final amount? Are any variations possible?
Yeah.
Yeah, just seek to understand the number, knowing that when that number is agreed to, it'll probably then be anchored.
Yeah. So the availability heuristic, I know it's like we're much more likely to be frightened getting in an aeroplane as opposed to driving our car. But in actuality, you are in much more danger of having an accident driving to the corner shop than you are flying around the world. And that is the reality of the data. But it's the availability heuristic. Plane accidents are very dramatic, so they lodge in the front of our brains, and they're what come to mind. So what comes to mind when your dog becomes ill is every story you've ever heard, horror stories about dogs becoming ill and something terrible happening to them. Yeah. So the thing to ask is,
is this typical in this situation, or is it just a heuristic?
Yeah. Exactly. Is this typical or is it memorable? The sunk cost fallacy. Look, we've come this far. We've already spent $6,000. What's another 3? It's an absolute trap, and it traps us, as I said before earlier in the podcast. It traps us in relationships. It traps us in phone calls, and it traps us financially.
So cast yourself as a partner in the collaboration, and every new decision is a new decision.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
You don't fall into the trap of saying, "Oh, what's another $6,000?"
Yeah, and confirmation bias. So, we cherry pick the environment and only notice things which agree with what we already think. So the only way to actually get out of the trap, the massive trap of confirmation bias, is, David?
Well, the way to get out of that is to almost like apply the scientific method. How could I be wrong? Search for disconfirming information.
Yeah.
And have the internal stability to actually ask yourself, how could I be wrong about this?
Yeah. So that's our where we are currently with our beloved Grudel. We are still waiting to hear how he is. And we will let you know on Thursday. So thank you very much for listening to our story. It's been a bit traumatic. I don't drink Monday or Tuesday nights because I'm a fairly rule-bound person, but tonight I'm going to have a big glass of Sauvignon Blanc.
And I'm going to pour it for you.
Thank you. So thank you, David, for joining me.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. And thank you so much, listeners, for tuning in. Stay safe, stay well, keep your critical thinking hats on. See you soon. Bye. Oh, can you please subscribe? That's what I had to say.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Richard Saunders told me, who has the Skeptic Zone podcast, that I have to ask at the end of every episode to please subscribe. And I've never done that because I'm a little bit useless. So Harry will put, I don't know how to do that. Harry will put something in the link.
Harry will put something in the link.
Yeah.
And know that that any support for the Why Smart Women podcast is actually going to return a lovely Grudel to full health. We're going to have to pay these bills and maybe the podcast can earn a bit of money.
It's hilarious. Thanks, guys. See you later. Bye. Thanks for tuning into Why Smart Women with me, Annie McCubbin. I hope today's episode has ignited your curiosity and left you feeling inspired by my anti-motivational style. Join me next time as we continue to unravel the fascinating layers of our brains and develop ways to sort out the fact from the fiction and the over 6,000 thoughts we have in the course of every day. Remember, intelligence isn't enough. You can be as smart as paint, but it's not just about what you know, it's about how you think. And in all this talk of whether or not you can trust your gut, if you ever feel unsafe, whether it's in the street, at work, car park, in a bar, or in your own home, please respect that gut feeling. Staying safe needs to be our primary objective. We can build better lives, but we have to stay safe to do that. And don't forget to subscribe, rate and review the podcast and share it with your fellow smart women and allies. Together, we're hopefully reshaping the narrative around women and making better decisions. So until next time, stay sharp, stay savvy, and keep your critical thinking hat shiny. This is Annie McCubbin signing off from Why Smart Women. See you later. This episode was produced by Harrison Hess. It was executive produced and written by me, Annie McCubbin.